And welcome to WRPB and WRB Studios and another episode of From Trauma to Success. And you know, I always say we all have backstories, and sometimes I'm blessed to meet somebody who's willing to share their backstory, because your backstory always has the ability to help someone else. And even if it only helps one person, it has total value. With me is Jules. Hey, you.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. So, we met on Facebook.
We did.
Go figure. Okay. And we started to talk, and what got me was that you worked at a recovery facility, and we all have backstories, and if you're working at a facility, you probably lived in that scenario, because you guys are the best to help others who live in that scenario.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to the beginning.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Okay, when did everything start?
My addiction or just use in general?
No, just use in general.
I was 9.
Wow, okay. At 9 years old, how do you get started? What, you smoking pot?
Cigarettes, pot, alcohol.
How does that get started?
I had older brothers.
Okay.
It was accessible. It's always accessible everywhere.
Okay, so was it accessible because they wanted you to have it, or because it was there and you were just able to
It was there
get
and I wanted it to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, it's generational. An older brother or an older sister says, you should try this, this is great.
Right.
And my philosophy is a little different than everybody else's. Addiction starts as a choice
Correct.
and ends as a disease, in my opinion. I don't know how right I am, I'm not a doctor, but that's how I see it. Okay, so you're 9 and you're drinking, going to school?
Mm-hmm.
Doing good in school?
I was doing very well in school. I was a very popular kid back in the day. I was published in Who's Who among American high school students when I went to high school. I was president of Future Business Leaders of America. I had 4.0. Did very well in school.
So you're in school, you're doing good. Addiction kick in yet?
Not yet.
Okay. So you're recreational smoking and drinking.
Yes.
So you're not kind of just getting blitzed constantly.
No.
Okay.
Not at all. It was just here on the weekends with friends, that kind of thing.
Okay. Now time goes by, and when do you find that it's become an addiction?
I was in denial for so long that I didn't realize my addiction was a problem until I was 32 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay, so if you think back today, when do you think it started?
At 9?
Okay.
I'm not kidding. At 9, it did, because even though that I was doing it recreationally, I was always doing it. It didn't prevent me from doing school or being with my family. However, it kept me numb.
Okay, so you're a functioning addict, I guess. Okay, so now, did you go to college?
Here recently.
Recently?
Yes, I waited till I was in my 30s and I went.
Congratulations. Okay, so let's go back. So you get out of high school?
I dropped out of high school at 15.
Okay.
Because of my addiction and because of my trauma and my history. I was living out on my own.
Okay, so you're 15. Today you realize that it was an addiction and heavy. Was it still just alcohol and pot?
By 15, absolutely not.
Okay, so when did it change from alcohol and pot to something more?
Probably around 13 or 14.
Where did you go from there?
I went to LSD. I went to pills. I had a panic and anxiety disorder and things like that, also due to my trauma. So, I was prescribed medication from a doctor. I was on benzodiazepines and things for sleep and things for this. So those became addictions right away, and I always abused my medication.
Okay. LSD. Why did you go there? Was it and I don't know, and you guys know me, I don't have a clue, so as I sit here with someone who knows, I'm learning. Was it inexpensive? Was it easy to get?
At that time, it was very easy to get, and it was very inexpensive, and it was a lot of fun.
Okay. Now you're 15 and you're doing LSD. Is it like, this is not enough, let me try something else? Or
I don't want to say that it was ever like that. It wasn't like, okay, I'm doing this drug and I've had enough of it. Let me go on to the next one. I was just always experimenting. I was willing to try new things. However, I was very reserved. I wasn't going to ever try heroin, and I'm not going to do crack because, like, those are the bad drugs, and those are the ones with the people sleeping under the bridges and steal from their families. So, like, I was a reserved addict. I was like, I'll stick with the alcohol and the pills and you know, a couple things here and there. But, you know, and I would never do intravenous, you know, IV drug using either. But that eventually happened as well, too.
okay, so you go through this. What's the next step from LSD?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Anything that I could put in front of me, I did.
Like cocaine.
It was Rufinols when those came out,
Okay.
and those were popular. Like, it was the date rape drug, but I was like, oh, I'll take them voluntarily. Just give them to me. I loved those kind of pills because it had the opposite effect on me. So, like, if I take a Xanax, you know, most people go to sleep. Not me. I'm running around baking, cleaning, scrubbing tiles with toothbrushes and things. So, like, the same thing with Rufinols. Like, it had that effect, and I liked the way it made me feel. So anything that changed the way I felt, anything that made me feel good, I did.
Okay, so you go through this and you get to these different stages. Were you working?
Of course. I always worked 2+ jobs.
Okay, so I guess up to this point, it's still financially feasible for you to do. Okay. When did it get to the point where you weren't a functioning addict?
When I was 32.
Okay, so you're 32 now, not now, but because you're only 29. I was taught right. Okay.
Yes, you were.
Okay, so you're 32, and now you realize that this is out of control? Or you
Nope.
don't- Okay, so all you realize is you wanted more, but you weren't functioning properly.
Okay, so what happened around 32 is I didn't get in a whole lot of trouble my whole life, even with the drugs and alcohol and even with the lifestyle I lived, because I was also doing some things that I wasn't proud of for professional. Like, I was a stripper for a very long time, and so I was in the partying atmosphere. So that's what we did for a living, and that's where you tried all the new stuff too. So at 32, I ended up arrested and sitting in jail. And I had to really reflect on my life. My kids were taken away from me, and all these things happened. And still, at that time, I was in complete denial that I was even an addict.
Oh, wow. Now, I get it, because back in the day, I owned 2 strip clubs in Jersey. So, and you know that I didn't do any drugs and I didn't drink.
Right.
But it was around constantly. And I hate to say it, but when guys go to strip clubs, because I've been in that industry, I say to myself, how could you be so stupid? Okay? The dancer's job is just to separate you from your dollar. And then I say, the dancer, I'm guessing you had to make yourself cold to the scenario of dealing with guys.
I would say numb.
Numb. Yeah, I couldn't think of that word.
Yeah, I would say numb.
Too big a word for me.
And it also, you know, liquid courage. You know what I mean? When you're drinking and doing drugs in that atmosphere, you feel better, you feel pretty, you feel confident, you feel fearless, and like you can go do whatever you needed to do, handle your business, make your money.
Okay, so you already by then had 2 kids.
At 19, I had my first one, and I had my second one at 29.
Oh, wow. Now, okay, so now you get arrested and they take your kids away. And you go to jail. How long are you in jail?
Well, initially I bonded right out because I was already out on bond
Oh, okay.
for another charge. And so they kind of escaped through the little loop there because you're not supposed to get bonded out. You're not supposed to have a bond if you're out on bond. So I got out for a little bit and they realized, oh, she's on 2 bonds. So they came to pick me back up. And I got put in, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention names, but St. Louis County Jail, Rock Road.
Okay.
And then I sat in there and I had to sit in there. And it was December 17th. That's my clean date. And I was stuck. There was nothing I could do.
So December 17th, you go into jail.
2012.
Okay, and so I hear stories that drugs are easily accessible in jail.
I wouldn't go that far. However, you can maneuver around in there.
Right.
There was people snorting coffee. There's people cheeking their meds and then doing whatever they do with them. You know, like they would do certain things to like try to smoke cigarettes through tampon things. Like they come up with creative ways, but I'll be honest with you, did not partake.
Okay, so you go in. Are you now done in your mind that you have to make a change?
No,
How long were you in?
not at all. Well, when I first got in there, like I said, I was in denial, and a girlfriend that I now am very, very close with, she came up to me and she handed me a Narcotics Anonymous book and says, "Girl, you're an addict and you really need to read this." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I had track marks, so I was shooting dope at
Okay.
this point. Up and down my arms, my kids are taken away. I can't leave jail. I'm looking at 10 years in prison. So I read this book, and when I read the book, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That's when I realized in that moment. I sat in my bunk all night long and I read that book from front to back. And I'm like, okay, that's me.
So now your mindset is, I gotta make changes.
I don't know what to do. How do I do this? How do I fix it?
Okay. What was the plan?
Well, a bunch of times that I tried to get clean and sober, like I never had insurance and they didn't have treatment centers and stuff like they have right now. So like if you were lucky enough to get into a state-run facility, they kept you for 3 days and kicked you out on the street and said, don't use. So like I didn't know how to do that, and no one was there to teach me. So when I was incarcerated, they actually had a program. It's called the Journey Forward program. And that's a big part of my story because when I got sentenced and I had to stay in jail, I was looking at 10 years in prison. However, I only ended up getting 7 months incarceration. And so I got to go into the Journey Forward program, which is the drug dorm. And I got to be in like a full treatment center, which it felt like, and probably better than most treatment centers because they're not getting paid, you know?
Right.
I hate to say it that way, but like, and counselors and groups and learning that every word that I knew was wrong. Like even my definitions, learning that I was using drugs because of my trauma and I was in denial, and because I talked about it, didn't make it better. And so like I had this amazing experience and I was just willing. I had done everything on my own and tried until I was 32 years old and nothing worked. So I was willing to take direction. I was willing to do anything to make my life change.
Okay, so that's 32. Mm-hmm. How many times did you try to get clean prior? A guesstimate.
I didn't really try, I'll be honest with you. There was times where I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired of being dope sick. And now I would try to cold turkey it myself. I was on Xanax for 18 years. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I was in 7, actually more accidents than that, but my head's been through 7 windshields and I have a lot of physical trauma from those car accidents. So they put me on, you know, prescription medication too. So they stopped work and started shooting them, all that kind of stuff. So I don't even lost train of my thought of where I was going with that.
Are we talking about how many times you tried on your own?
So I tried to stop and I'd get my doctors. They wouldn't help because they'd either cut me off completely or they just give me more medication. And when I do it myself, I detox for weeks and weeks at a time, and I'm not exaggerating. It would go 3 weeks and I'd be like 69 pounds living in a bathtub and it wouldn't go away. So I get so tired after weeks of feeling like this and it's not getting any better. It's not going, I go get high again because I just couldn't feel sick anymore.
Okay, so now we're going to go backwards.
Uh-oh, okay.
Okay, and talk about family. Okay, so everybody's family life is a little bit different. I grew up middle class America. I think my brother's 2 years older than me, and I think at, 14, my mom and dad smoked, because back then you smoked. And my mom, I remember, this was yesterday, in the dining room, my mom goes to me and my brother, if you want to smoke, it's okay, but you have to smoke in the house. You just can't smoke outside. And that was the end. I lost all interest to smoke. And I never smoked.
Reverse psychology.
Okay, yep. My mom's a pretty sharp lady. My mom's 90 now, and I moved out of assisted living to live with me. And she's a handful. But she's my mom, and you get one mom, and I had a good childhood. Was your childhood okay?
No.
Okay. So
not at all.
What?
Not at all.
Okay, so for me, my childhood was great. And then I was almost 11, and my family was very close with my mom's brother, my uncle. And then he indoctrinated me into being the pedophile that he is. And remember, as a boy, you're coming into your time then, where your hormones are going and whatever. And I talk about my situation, and people say, oh, I'm sorry. And I say, no, it's a blessing. And I believe it was a blessing because, for me, I'm one of the few guys that'll talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I can help others. So that's the blessing to me. After it ended, it was only 18 months. And it was a walk in the park in the fact that I was going to Disney. I was driving a boat. I was coming to Florida because I was from up north. It was like, that was the payment, basically, in my eyes, and I was learning something new. And back then times were different.
Very.
And my mom didn't know, in my opinion, but back then they swept it under the carpet anyway. Okay? So it stopped, And I remained close with my uncle from then on. It ended about 17, 18 months later. I stayed close to my uncle. He came on vacations with us, came to my house, spent holidays. And then he hurt my mom, I don't know, 10 years ago, whatever it was. And that was the end. Then I came out with it, yelled and screamed, and it was my time to help others. For you, you had a bad childhood. Do you think, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one brother.
Okay. Do you think, was his childhood bad too?
His was pretty rough, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that, I don't want to say it was an excuse, but it made it easier to say, you know what, I'm going to numb myself through this by drinking or smoking pot? Because remember, you were like...
Well, now you got to think about this, okay? I'm between 13 and 15. My brother is too. We don't think about it in logics like that. So, like, all I know is that we were both very unhappy. We went through my parents' divorce. I was sexually molested by a very, very close family member at the age of 3. And all these things were happening in our lives. And my mom got remarried. We moved to another state. And all these different things were happening. And all I know is that we didn't have coping tools. My mom didn't have them to teach us. Therefore, we did what we could to get by. So, like, when you smoke a cigarette, okay, that felt better. Gave me a little head rush. When I had a drink, oh, I had a little bit of fun. This is great. I'm not thinking about this anymore. When I'm smoking pot, when I'm having these night terrors at night, I'm not really doing that because I don't dream when I smoke pot. So there was all kinds of reasons why I was doing the things that I was doing.
Okay, so now you get out of jail.
Oh, we're going for it again, okay.
Okay. And you lost your kids, right, at that point?
Well, my oldest, she was living with her father from the time she was 6 years on, and my youngest had always been with me up until I went incarcerated, and then she went to stay with her father when I got incarcerated. When I got out, he had a stroke while I was in there from shooting heroin and drugs and ended up paralyzed on the left-hand side, and he was in an assisted living facility, and so my youngest daughter was getting bounced around from family member to family member until I got out.
Okay, so you get out, you get the kids back.
Well, I got her back.
Yeah, you got her back, and you realize that you're in the process of making a change in your life.
Oh, I had already started the process, absolutely.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how long you clean?
It'll be 9.5 years right now. It'll be 10 in December.
Okay, so as best as I know, you're still in the process because every day is a process?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you get her back, okay? Do things fall in order, or
Absolutely not. The night I got out of jail, my cat passed away right in front of me, and I had no phone, no car, no nothing. It was like a test. Hey, how bad do you want this? And my drug dealer was at the apartment at the end of my little walkway, and instead of going to my drug dealer's house, I picked up my recovery Bible, and I prayed to God to get myself through it, and I got through that moment without using, and I figured if I can do that, then I can do it the next day too.
Okay. Did you end up going to NA?
Absolutely, I did. As soon as I got out of jail, I started going to AA, NA, CA, DDA, all the different A's that you can. I think it's DAA. Sorry, Drug Addicts Anonymous. But I went to every one because they told you to go to all the different meetings so you found out which one you connected with. And finally, around 2 years, they're like, Jules, you have to pick a team. And I'm like, okay, I picked Narcotics Anonymous because AA is a very big community, right? And so they have a lot of strong women in AA. They didn't have a lot of strong women in Narcotics Anonymous, and I wanted to be one of those people to help the women that came and helped me.
Right. Well, and ironically enough, when you help somebody else, you're actually helping yourself.
Yes.
Okay? When not enough people were asking me about what I went through, I ended up getting a tattoo. It said, I'm a survivor, no shame. And it was very cathartic for me to speak in front of groups. People come over to me. One kid came over to me and said, my cousin molested me when I was 12 or whatever. I don't remember the whole thing. Gave me cocaine, told me he'd kill my family if I ever said anything. So I didn't have that. But you're indoctrinated in other ways. My uncle would always say to the family when we're together, oh, Wayne, he's a liar. Wayne's a liar. Wayne's a liar.
So he decredited you right off the rip.
Right. So when I finally came out with it, his words just came back out of his mouth. Oh, Wayne, he's a liar. I needed to figure out a way to get past it, as you did. I didn't have an addiction, but I did have pieces left over from that.
Right.
As you do. How old is your daughter now?
My youngest is 14 and my oldest is going to be 23 next week.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the 14-year-old's with you? Okay, so because you've been through it, do you know certain signs that you look for?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I'm very guarded with her too. I don't just leave her with anybody. And there's certain circumstances, even with her own father, I would not allow him to do certain things with because, like I said, it was a very close family relative that hurt me.
That's my uncle. I get it.
Closer for
Well,
me.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Right? I know. And,
Okay.
and so people teach your kids stranger danger, but it's not. Sometimes it's the closest people to you have to pay attention to.
Right, because we trust them.
Correct.
Okay, and we respect them.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know if you know the numbers, but since you've been through a similar situation as me, 6 boys before 18, 4 girls before they're 18 get molested. Those are reported. Boys, 11 to 13. Girls, 3 to 8. The number is disgusting. Okay? And again, I talk about my story, but someone's story is always worse. I have a friend who it started with her grandfather, went to her father. He put rocks and glass on the floor, didn't let his wife have shoes, sold his wife, sold his kids, under 1 year old. He sold for sex. So you're
horrific.
right. You have to guard because you have to protect them. Interesting for my daughter, because my daughter, the one thing my daughter knew is that everything she did, I already knew. Even though I didn't do the drugs and stuff, but I'd already been in that thing. So she didn't get away with anything. I was just telling a story about my ex was living in a split level, and it was my daughter's sweet 16. So they bought like 60 bottles of soda down on the lower floor, and then there's a landing with a desk. I was sitting there, and then there's the upper floor where the pool table was. And my daughter passed me. I said, "Elise, I told you no alcohol. There's no alcohol here, Dad." I said, "Elise, really? Like, come on, you know better. How do you know there's alcohol?" I said, "Because there's 60 bottles of soda right there, and yet the 30 of you guys are drinking from the same 16-ounce bottle of Pepsi." Okay? You can't get, you just, we
know.
Yeah, we know.
We know all the tricks in the trade, filling the water in the bottles under your parents' cabinets. And, you know, one day they're like, "Oh, here, you can have them." No, they're all water. Like, that's the way that went.
Okay, so you dealt within a realm of the drugs, and then you dealt within the realm of the, take this, I mean it, but if we don't say it, we can't help, in the sex world, okay? But you always worked,
Always.
okay? Because the last interview I did, she went into prostitution, okay? Different from prostitution as a stripper,
Very different.
okay? She was street walking and stuff like that, okay? And when I owned my clubs, you couldn't be nude at all. You couldn't even flash your top,
I remember those days.
okay? It was 2 girls, half hour on, half hour off. They made over 100,000 a year, and they didn't get abused like they do today.
Right.
It really is very, very different. But so you get out of jail. Do you think now you're on this process, do you think that you're going to be able to hold to it, or does temptation kind of get to you and say, it's tough? Because you got out, you had nothing, right?
I won't say I had nothing. I had just gotten a $100,000 settlement from the car accident I was in,
Okay.
and my mom had just passed away, and that was another reason that triggered my spiral before I went into jail. And so when I got out, I still had my apartment. It was fully furnished. My child was being taken care of. I got her back within 2 weeks. I had money in the bank. I could have done, like I said, anything I wanted, but I wanted a different life. I was tired of being miserable. I was tired of being unhappy. I was tired of being uncomfortable in my own skin and just wanting to escape no matter what. No matter what it was, I just wanted to escape myself, my head, my body, everything.
Okay, so we always talk about addicts exchange one addiction for another. Did you do the same?
Well, I've always been a smoker. I've been smoking since I was 9, so I didn't switch on to that. And, you know, some people say you do it with food, but I didn't do it with that either. I did get heavy in recovery because I was unhealthy for so long that when I
Right.
got in recovery, I packed on so much weight. At one point, I was like 270.
Were you really?
Yeah, I lost all the weight the last 3 years.
Wow. That's impressive. Well, what's really impressive is that you took the spiral that you went through and you came out the other side with success.
Yes.
Okay? The most important thing about this is that we explain to people that your trauma doesn't have to define who you are.
Correct.
Okay? when I talk about mine, and I'm on a crisis line, and I tell them, the more you let that affect you, the more the abuser wins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're you, and is it perfect? No, because there's nobody out there that's perfect. Okay? And I'm very open about how I deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Color doesn't affect me. Religion doesn't. Those things don't affect me. I could care less. Okay, just tell me the person that you are. That's what matters to me. And trust me, I'm far from perfect. And I'm in the entertainment industry, which is even worse. Okay, but the thing is, I made it through, and I have the platform and the ability to sit with you, and let others know that you can make it through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it hard?
I'm going to be real honest with you. My whole life, I didn't think I'd ever make it through, right? And then when the addiction took over, it was like, this is a way to deal with it, but then everything else was falling apart. So, like, it was hard getting there. You know, they talk about your rock bottom. Like, your rock bottom's when you stop digging, but, you know, we keep digging. So, like, it was really hard for me to hit that bottom. But when my mom died, it was the biggest trauma for me. She was my biggest supporter and my biggest enabler. So when she passed, it was either sink or swim. Either do something different or you're going to die. And I wanted something different so bad. And now I had finally found this opportunity and this resource where I could actually find the tools that I needed to get clean and sober. I had the alumni, I had the Journey Forward program, I had these 12-step meetings, I had all these things. So, like, I was on fire. All the gifts that came, like I said, as soon as I got out of jail, I got my daughter back within 2 weeks. You know, that's unheard of. Like, I had my life, I had my apartment, I had all these different things going on in my life. So recovery was showing that as if I keep doing this, good things will come.
Okay.
And it was difficult. It's very difficult. It's still difficult today.
And I was just going to go that route. You're always in recovery, I would guess.
Always in recovery.
And part of the problem we have today is that everything you look at is go to this bar, go to that bar. Okay, everybody. Okay, so medical marijuana came up to be voted on, and it passed. It didn't pass because of medical marijuana, because there's not enough people that would make it pass for that.
Right.
It passed because recreational users wanted a path. It really should have just been decriminalized. Because if I had a kid that needed it, and I got caught with it, it cost me $25, worth every penny. But it didn't, and it really is based around dollars, obviously. We know that. Let's talk about you now, going out. Because everything is a bar almost.
But that's the thing. In my life, I don't go to bars. Like, that's when I want to go out, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to go hang out at a bar or shoot pool.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to go with my kids roller skating. We're going to go to the movies. We're going to go to theme parks and go on vacations and things like that. I don't hang out in bars. We hang out. I pay to live in a home. I love my home. My home is my Zen place. So we entertain. I have guests come over. I'm the hostess with the mostest. Like, I make all the food and we do fun games, and my kids' friends all hang out at the house because they enjoy being there. Like, our home is our space. So, like, we spend a lot of time at home, but then we also spend a lot of time going out and doing fun things, going out to eat.
It's weird because my thing is going by the water to a restaurant or a bar, listening to music, and eating. I don't drink, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Okay. I have a friend who does once a month a whiskey and bourbon tasting. So I went for the first time. Obviously, I don't drink, so it was no big deal. But I have a very high-end chocolate company, and we make truffles with alcohol in them. Okay, not alcohol flavoring, but real alcohol. So I bought that, and it's like, I get it, because what I heard that whole night from those 30 people, hey, you got to try this one. You got to try this one. You got to try this one. And I was like, no, that's not for me. I had to growing up. We'd sit on the stoop, that's a Brooklyn talk, which is stairs that goes up to the house.
I'm from Jersey. I get it. I know. I know the lingo.
So and they would like either drink wine, okay, Boone's Farm, because that's all the kids could afford, or they'd smoke pot, and they'd pass it around, and it would have to pass me because I wouldn't do it.
Right.
Okay, and I've had experiences in my life where it's like, I hate to say it this way, but, oh, you're chicken, or you're stupid, or you're this, or you're that, because I don't. But I always lived my life to be the rebel and the different one.
Right.
And again, I don't do everything that's perfect, but what gives me pleasure It's not for everybody.
Right.
Okay. What's the future for you?
I don't know, sky is the limits for me. I've had so many goals and aspirations since I've gotten in recovery, and I've achieved them all. Like we just discussed earlier, I waited till I was 35 to go back to college, and I now have an AA, an AS, and a BS
In what?
degree in human services.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, and so like I'm still going to go on to my master's program, but I want to wait till after my daughter's out of high school because she needs me right now. I can't go out saving the world and not save my own kid. So I'm paying attention to that. I'm a writer too, so I'm in the midst of writing my own story, and I'm also writing a daily inspirational quote, and I'm hoping to have them published one day. And one day I want to just like travel the world in my yacht and in my RV and do what I need to do. Just
I have a lady that does daily inspirationals. I built her YouTube channel. I started optimizing it. She gives me 5 devotionals every week. The week before, I put them up on her YouTube channel. I send her a bunch of emails. They all have 500, 800 something views. She got about 180 subscribers.
Wow.
I'm a certified YouTube partner, so I manage over 2 million subscribers in total.
Right.
But it's so cool. Like, I was really excited for you coming in because I love to hear success stories. You're the minority, just so you know. Most that go through that path are not success
I was
stories.
going to say I'm glad to be sitting here as a success story because they were planning my funeral.
Yeah, it surely wasn't easy to get you here. Just say it. I must have messaged you like 500 times. I had to resend you the address because it was all the way down the feed. But that's just me. I believe in energy. I'm very connected to people energy-wise. And I'm also, when I believe I'm stuck to something to do, I do it and get it done. Okay? Obviously, because I was like so annoying to you, but it was like, it is what it is. But it was like,
I know, I'm like, I'm better in person than on the phone. Like, I'm always busy.
it was like, all right, she has a story, and that story, no matter what, might help that one person. It just has to help that one person. The rest really doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay? I surely would like to help more, but if I can get through it and help one person, I'm thrilled.
Right.
Okay? And that's my blessing. That's my good karma. And everybody's put on this earth for a reason. Mine is to help others.
Me too.
Okay? So I kind of get it. And look, I've been on my deathbed twice. I've been with BS through the world, just like everybody else. I don't let it define who I am. Somehow I got into this industry by accident, and everybody said, like I said, it's a pipe dream. Get a real job. Don't be stupid. You know, I was driving an electric skateboard scooter in my 30s. Everybody was laughing at me. Now, ride on scooters, a big thing. When I was riding a scooter, people were laughing at me. Look at that old guy on a scooter. But I don't fall for any of that. I don't care what somebody else thinks.
Right.
Okay? I know what works for me, right or wrong. A lot of times it's not right. A lot of times it's wrong. But it's me. And I'm the one that has to deal with it, and I'm the one that has to come to terms with what I've done and who I am. With that, it's so cool to see somebody who's gone into this tunnel and come out the other side where there was light.
Yes.
If you had any tip to give somebody who's going through this now, what would it be?
Well, with trauma and addiction, when I first originally reached out about what happened to me, my person did not know how to comprehend it. So it got shut down, slapped across the face. Hey, that didn't happen. Don't ruin my life. So just keep talking to people. Talk to people until someone listens. And this road is very difficult. However, if I think about my life and all the things that I have been through and all the things that I have done, the payoff in recovery is so much better. The payoff before an addiction was just, the biggest high you can get and not remembering the next day, and everything was still there. So in recovery, I'm building a life of my dreams, and it is hard work, and I have to look at myself, and I have to look at my past, and I have to continue being mindful of all these things that are important that trigger me or that cause me to go in a direction I don't want to go in, and know that, like I tell my kids, that the sky is the limit. Anything is possible. I don't have to let my trauma define me. I don't have to let my addiction define me. I don't have a criminal record define me. I just have to work twice as hard to do the things that I want to do, which makes me feel more accomplished at the end of the day. Because if it was given to me, it doesn't feel like it was mine. I need to work for that. I want to earn it, just like I did my degrees, just like I did for my spot in my life, just like I did for everything.
And that's a blessing. Everybody, don't let the trauma define you. There's a path to get out of it. You just have to want that path, and you have to do it. Everybody have a great day, and we'll be right back. Thank you.